we thought, what's something anybody needs regardless of what's going on, right? And everybody is glued to their phones these days or devices, whether it's the iPad, Kindles, etc. So we wanted something extremely portable that you could have on you that packs a punch versus those big bricks that, when you're out in the town, you wish you had, but they're so bulky and cumbersome that you don't have them. So that's what kind of got us to the drawing board for that. And that's taken off, to just new levels, way surpassing our other products. And, we kind of credit COVID to that because it really kind of put us in an uncomfortable position, right? Because we were so heavily concentrated into just the B2B business with hotels that, it allowed us to basically think, hey, these things could happen. How are we going to pivot from it?
Hello, and welcome to The In Factor. I'm Dr. Rebecca White, and as always, this podcast is about how entrepreneurs think, decide, adapt, and grow, especially when the path forward isn't obvious. As this episode airs just after the start of 2026, I want to begin the year with something foundational: goal setting, and specifically what research and best practice tell us about goal setting in uncertainty. We all know we're living in a world that's full of uncertainty, and some of us have a lot more in our lives at different points in our life. And every January, we're surrounded by messages about new goals, fresh starts, big intentions. But we're all living, as I said, in a world with a lot of uncertainty. We don't know where the economy's headed. We have a lot of political discord. And, we're just living in a world that's pretty challenging right now. And we're living in a world where people are struggling to really understand themselves and what's going on around them. And we're living with a lot of uncertainty. Now, uncertainty is always a part of life, but I think we go through time periods, both in our life and in the world, where things are a bit more uncertain than usual, maybe. And understanding goal setting and the research around it can be really helpful as we think about trying to set some goals, especially in this year of 2026. We went through the COVID experience in 2020, and so this whole decade's been a little bit challenging. And it's hard for me to believe that we're already on the second half of this decade. So if you're like me, you don't want to miss out on making sure that every moment of your time and that your life in general is something that you're happy with, that you're living on purpose, and that you're actually able to set and realize goals that matter to you. So let's talk a little bit about goal setting today. For example, if we look at the research, decades of research in psychology and organizational behavior show that goals work best when they're specific and behavior-based, not just outcome-based. In fact, Edwin Locke and Gary Latham's work on goal setting tells us that clarity matters, but clarity about actions, not just aspirations. It's what we do in those moment-to-moment days that we're living that really add up to the outcomes in our life. So we need to go back to that level. We're really good at setting outcome goals, or at least I've always been. That's something I've always focused on: revenue targets, growth numbers, market expansion if you're a business owner, or your personal goals. Maybe you want to lose weight, or maybe you want to exercise more, or focus on something in your diet that's going to make you healthier. But outcome-only goals tend to be more fragile, especially in uncertain environments. They depend on too many variables that are outside our control. So what does work, especially for entrepreneurs, are goals that are tied to skills that you want to build or that you're deliberately building, capabilities that you're strengthening, systems that you can be refining or refreshing or adding, and decisions that you're practicing repeatedly. Decisions add a lot of stress to our lives. And I think we don't realize how many decisions we make in a day. And all those decisions add up to the outcomes we want. And I heard recently that it was actually on one of my podcasts, which you're going to be listening to, in the next few months if you continue to listen to the N Factor. But my guest was talking about the fact that 98% of our day we're living relatively unconsciously. And that pertains to the decisions we make as well. In more recent research, scholars studying uncertainty and complex environments, including work in entrepreneurship, strategy, and even neuroscience, point out that adaptive goals outperform rigid plans. In other words, goals function better as directional guides than as fixed destinations. And another insight that I think matters to business owners is that research on self-regulation and habit formation shows that fewer, more focused goals dramatically increase follow-through. So getting back to that idea that all those decisions we make every day, the habits we form, the fact that you decide you're going to exercise on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning, let's say, and you set out your clothes the night before to make it easier, those are the things that tend to get us to the outcomes we want. And as entrepreneurs, we tend to have a sense of urgency, a desire to get things done. That's a pretty common trait among those of us who are entrepreneurial. And so when we try to fix everything at once, and this is true as people, our business, our health, our finance, our relationships, progress actually slows down. So a lot of it is about getting clarity about focus, understanding that this year is one year, hopefully among many, and we can pick a focus for the area or for the year that really matters to us. I know for me, a lot of my life, I've really focused on my work. And, as I'm reaching a certain stage in my life, there are other things in my life, my family, for example, that I really want to add an additional focus to. So identifying what's most important to you is going to be critical as you move through setting your own goals. And sometimes that means having a focus on only one thing. It might affect your life in many ways, but it's one area where you really need to make change or you want to make change. Maybe it's adding that new system or bringing on a new person in your business, or maybe it's looking at your own personal health. So instead of asking, what do I want to accomplish in 2026, a more powerful question might be, what capabilities do I need to strengthen this year so I can handle what comes next? Which really brings me to the important point that framing can become an important part of what we're doing. Uncertainty isn't an exception anymore. It's the environment that we live in. And it's an environment that businesses have always been operating in. So today, what I wanted to do is really think a little bit more deeply about goal setting with you. And I wanted to bring in a couple of case studies, 2 interviews that are intentionally paired. First, you're going to hear from a very early stage founder. She's one of our students here at the University of Tampa. She's been in business officially for about a year, but she's been actively testing this concept for much longer. She's been learning from the market and navigating ambiguity through the whole way. She came here to the university to get her master's in entrepreneurship. She's working on building out and scaling her business. Then you're going to hear from a seasoned entrepreneur, someone who's been building a business for more than a decade and has lived through multiple cycles, growth, setbacks, reinvention, everything that we've all been through this decade and even before the prior one. And longitudinal research on entrepreneurship shows us that experience changes how we set goals, shifting from prediction to pattern recognition. So I'm very curious as you listen to these case studies for you to think about the difference in the way that they set goals. And the contrast is intentional because one of the core ideas behind entrepreneurial intelligence, which is something I'm focusing on now, is to build better judgment across stages, not just within the one that we're in. So this year, in fact, we're going to be setting the tone for the N Factor with what we're talking about today. This year, we're going to be exploring how entrepreneurs set goals. We're going to be learning to use goal setting and to add more clarity and capabilities, hopefully, to help you build your entrepreneurial intelligence. We're going to talk about how to remain fluid and open and purpose driven while moving forward. Think of this season as a conversation about how entrepreneurs keep changing and growing when the rules keep changing. And as you listen today, I invite you to think not just about your goals, but about what this next year is for you. Now, my first guest is Isabella Grinter. She's the founder of Izzies Bikinies. She's a graduate student, as I said, here at the University of Tampa. She's a solo entrepreneur and has already started generating some real traction and is facing the often monumental task of scaling. This is where a lot of entrepreneurs really, and a lot of new businesses really struggle. The second guest is Avan Samtani, and he's the co-founder of Aquavault and CEO of Venetian Capital Partners. He's been on my podcast before. You can go back through past episodes and listen to more of our discussion if you want. And as a more experienced entrepreneur who has launched his company as a co-founder and who is still growing his company, he's a great second case study for us to look at today. Okay, so let's get started. You're going to hear excerpts from our conversation about goals with Isabella and Avan. And then at the end, I'm going to talk a little bit more about my own goals. So I hope you'll stay tuned, and I hope you think about some of the ideas, suggestions, research, best practice that I talked about in the opening here. And I've got a special gift for you if you listen all the way through on my website. So I hope you'll join us and listen to this episode on goal setting for 2026. Izzy, welcome to the M Factor.
Hi, good to be here.
Well, thank you for joining me today. This is a special short edition. I'm interviewing entrepreneurs about goals, and this is airing early in 2026. And we're talking now in late mid-December, I guess, of 25. And you are a student at the University of Tampa, and you're the founder of Izzies Bikinies. So before we talk about your goals and goal setting, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about your business and how you got started?
Well, I started Izzies Bikinis when I was a senior in high school. I make custom reversible swimwear. I started because I couldn't find bikinis that flattered me or my body type or that I liked the patterns necessarily. I would go to stores and shop and I would find a pattern that I liked, but it wouldn't be in a style that complemented my body. So it was very limited. So I wanted to create a brand where you can basically make your dream bikini. All the bikinis are made to your measurements. You get to pick out the style and the coverage and then the fabrics. And we have over 60 fabrics right now to choose from, and they're all reversible.
That's very cool. So what you started this when you were a senior in high school, you said?
Yes.
Okay, so you are now in graduate school. So you've been doing it for a while, but you've been doing it kind of as a side hustle. And I think you've more seriously launched your business in the last year. Is that right?
Yeah. So in high school, I was just kind of doing it for myself. I just was doing it for myself because I guess I didn't know how many people had the problem. And then my friends, I started posting about it and my friends were like, oh, I want one. I want one. So then I started like just making them for my friends. And then about, I think it was last year at this time, a little before, I wanted to see if I could make this into a business. And I have.
Yeah, well, that's really cool. And why do you think custom bikinis, or what was the problem that you were trying to solve with custom bikinis?
Because when I was like starting this, I was in high school, it was right around spring break. And at the time, I would only either buy from cheap brands, which were poor quality and didn't fit me right, or you could buy from higher end brands, but you'd only wear them, at least girls my age would only wear them a couple of times, and then you feel like you've worn it out of them. So I wanted something that you could wear and keep wearing and that would last a long time.
Yeah. I know personally, trying on bikinis is not much fun at the store
Oh,
either. So the idea of having one customized to fit because they don't,
Mhm.
that when they're off the rack, they never fit anybody, right? Exactly right, I
Yeah, and
guess.
then sometimes when you go to the mall, you're just not like feeling it. You're not feeling confident. You're not feeling good. Like maybe you ate a whole bunch of food, so you already like are feeling bad and tired, and then you go and try them on, and it just doesn't. Sometimes staring in the mirror at your body is just doesn't really feel good. So with us, you can send me your measurements, and I'll make it custom to you and your body, and give you recommendations on the styles that I think will flatter your body type.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Well, it makes a lot of sense. I think there's a problem you're trying to solve, but marketing is always one of the biggest challenges, right?
hmm
And for products, distribution channels, and manufacturing. So, talk to me a little bit. Let's talk about goals. Um, do you like setting goals? I mean, is this something that you find valuable and useful?
Yes, I set goals with pretty much everything that I do. I've had goals for this year. I have goals for like the school year because I think I was already telling you about this since I'm technically in the 17th grade. I have 17 goals for like the school year and what I want to get out being at the university. So I think it's very important. And then with my goals, I'll set smaller goals that I need to hit each week and then each month to reach those bigger goals.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I there is a lot of research actually to support goal setting, and I know you've been successful so far. You've been a competitive swimmer, and you graduated from Ole Miss, I believe, and now you're
Yeah.
in the graduate program here. So those goals have been helpful, I'm sure. So you must be thinking about 2026. So tell us a little bit about how your business has grown maybe over this year and what your goals are for next year.
hmm My business has grown a lot this year. I never thought it would be like this big as it's gotten over the course of the year, because my goal for the year was to only sell 500 bikinis, and I've already sold 800. So going into the new year, I want to sell 2,200 bikinis, and start scaling my business and adding to my team, adding a social media manager, and then adding a full-time or either a part-time seamstress starting in January and then hopefully go full time and then another full time as we get into the busy summer season.
Well, that's ambitious. So, as you think about that, what do you think will be some of the challenges and what are some of the things that you're already thinking about to get you prepared to ensure that you meet your goals in
hmm
2026?
hmm Yeah. So a big part of my business during the off season is doing sorority sisterhood events. So I'm already reaching out to sororities, getting them in line because a big thing is to get them done before spring break. That's like I guess like my thing to like have them set a date, especially in like January and February where they're not even thinking about it. But if I tell them like, the process, how long it takes, then they're eager to get a date in, get them early so that way they have them in time for spring break.
That's a great idea. I mean, as we were talking about earlier, marketing is always one of the biggest challenges in production, but you're hoping to address both of those through adding some expertise. Have you thought about where you're going to look for the people that you hire? Do you have ideas for finding the right people? And have you thought about what those right people are like? I mean, what matters to you?
Definitely the quality and how well they've been sewing. I'll be posting on probably Indeed, and then because I've been asking around like local seamstress shops to see if they like know anyone, if they have anyone that has experience and kind of knows how to already sew. So I've been looking for like that characteristics and having already like been in the business.
Yeah. So it sounds like to me what you're facing is how do you scale this business? And you're a classic entrepreneurial startup. I think you started as a side hustle. You've done most all of your own marketing, right? And
Mm.
production up to this point and running
Yeah.
your business. And you're in our graduate program, hopefully to learn more to help you with that. So now the key is how do you scale? So, would you say that's like your number one question, or do you have other questions that you're thinking about now as you approach the next year?
Yeah, it's definitely all about like scaling going into the new year, being bigger, working on growing our target audience, finding people that would like my brand and representing it, and then just growing. I'd hopefully like to be in stores as well, maybe just do like a standard sizing of our best-selling fabrics, and that kind of thing, but just getting people, especially in Tampa, knowing about Izzies Bikinis.
Do you think that going into the store will undermine your customization product, or do you think that'll help support it? And either way, how so?
I think it'll help support it, just being able for people to see like the fabrics that I'm already offering, because my best-selling fabrics are sharks and lobster. So, I get a bunch of orders for that every week. I would say about 50% are those two fabrics. So I think if just making them and just having them in the store, people will be able to see and then be able to see like, oh, it's reversible, and then on the card be like, oh, I can actually customize it and make my own kind of thing. So I think it'll help with like the marketing and getting people seeing about it.
Mm-hmm. So, if you were targeting stores, are you looking for higher end stores, or your target audience is young females, age what?
18 to 24 really is who
Okay.
we've been targeting. I'd like to expand it as we grow and as I find like as I have like the resources to expand it. But putting them in like beach shops, especially in like Clearwater or St. Pete, where people frequently go and where there's frequent like tourists in the summertime.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, this has been really interesting. So I look forward to seeing what you do. Your business is all about scaling in 2026. And I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there probably listening to this that are thinking the same thing. So, have you gotten, I always ask my guests if they had one piece of advice for startups. And I'm just wondering if I can ask you as an early stage entrepreneur, has there been one piece of advice that you've gotten that has really been the most insightful and helpful along the way so far?
I feel like I've gotten a lot, but especially early on, I feel like a lot of people think like, oh, I need to do this. Oh, I need to do this. Like I can't launch until I do this kind of thing. But I think because you're supposed to be, what's the word? You're supposed to be like embarrassed of your first product once you travel along. So I think the first thing, just get your product out there and see what people think about it and feel about it. And if you're really embarrassed, like down the road, you could just, offer your first customers, like offer them like a trade-in for your newer product or something better. So I would say just like launch now. And then one thing that like keeps me going, it's like the quote 1% better every day kind of thing. So if today I only sew 3 bikinis, well, tomorrow I'll do 3.5. That's 1% better. So just focusing on that and doing better than what you did yesterday.
Yeah, that's all really, really great advice. And I think you've lived that already because you went ahead and you just started, right? You dove right
hmm
in. You're a
Yeah.
competitive swimmer, right?
Yeah.
so, so you weren't
Yeah.
afraid to get in the water, swim a little, and see what you could learn. So I think
Yeah.
it's a great story.
Yeah. Not at all. I don't even think I ever thought like, oh, I'm nervous about it. I just did it. It was just like, why would this fail?
That's great. And
kind of
that's a great
thing. But
attitude to have, especially
yeah.
we don't know what we don't know, but why not
Yeah.
get out there and give it a try? So,
hmm
Izzy, this has been a great conversation, but I'd love to know and share with our audience how we can find Izzy's Bikinis and connect with you so that we can all get our own Izzy Bikini.
Yes, you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, or our website. It's at Izzies Bikinis, which is IZZIESBIKINIES.
Thank you, Izzy, for joining me today.
Thank you.
So that was Isabella, founder of Izzy's Bikinis, a young entrepreneur who is doubling down on her relatively young business. She's been testing her product for a number of years, but really gotten serious about her business over the last year. And she has some pretty serious goals about growth and her revenue goals and, what she wants to achieve in 2026 to scale Izzies Bikinis. What you're going to hear next is from Avin Samtani. I mentioned him earlier. He's a more seasoned entrepreneur. He's been is co-founder of his company. It's been around now for, I think, 16 years or so. And so he has been through COVID and also managed to put some systems in place to support goal setting and with his personal goals as well as with his team. So I think you'll be able to see the difference between these two goal settings. And I think you're going to hear from Avin some really great advice to help you think about your own goal setting. They're both great case studies, and I'm excited about both companies, but also interested to have you think a little bit more about these two case studies, how they differ, and what you can learn from that. So let's talk to Avin. So Avin, thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, Dr. White.
Yeah, so you and I have known each other for a while. I can't remember when I had you first on my podcast, but it's been probably a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I'd say about 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years. Wow, it goes by so fast. But you're on the advisory board for the Loth Entrepreneurship Center here at the University of Tampa, and you've worked with us on a number of different initiatives and with our students. I'm just really appreciate you joining me today. You're the co-founder of Aquavault, and I know you also have an investment company that you're CEO of, and maybe it's private equity.
Yep.
And so you're entrepreneurial, and I think just having a little conversation with you about goals for 2026 would be fun for us to just kind of talk a little bit about goal setting and how you use goals and how you think about goals or not.
Sounds good.
All right. So thank you. So let me start by asking you, are you a goal setter by nature? Do you set goals, and, how do you think about goals?
Yeah, I'm absolutely a goal setter. I feel like, without having a goal, you're kind of just, pretty scattered. I'm very big into especially writing down my goals. Every single Sunday night, I basically map out my week, and I love crossing things off. That's just something I just love to do, and the feeling from it and the reward. A lot of people and colleagues I know all use digital kind of things, and it's just not the same. I've tried it, and I'm really big into writing down my goals every Sunday night, before the week starts.
I love hearing that, because I think it sounds like to me goals have become sort of a part of your whole planning system and I'm with you on that. It feels so good to set a goal and accomplish it and move on. So I love hearing that. Tell me a little bit about goal setting. Did you start this early in your life? Have you always been a goal setter, even before you were a business owner?
Yeah, it kind of, instead of goals, it was more to-do lists. It kind of goes hand in hand. I feel like if you have everything in front of you, it's tough to forget, because again, it's just so easy to be scattered, right? So when you have kind of everything in front of you, it's just a constant reminder to, take care of it. And I treat it the same way with goals, right? So ultimately, if I think about something or I speak to someone and something pops up, I love just writing it down, because it's just it's a reminder, right? It's super easy to forget things these days when when you're pulled in so many directions and you're doing so many different things. I'm definitely a big fan. I actually have this notepad that I conveniently found on Amazon, and it lists basically all your goals for the week, and it has top priorities, not forget, and it's really nice, and I'll share that with you one day when I see you. But I go through tons of these pads on a quarterly basis, right? Because I'm doing one every single week. But what I typically like to do is just divide big goals into smaller, manageable tasks, right? So it just makes it less overwhelming overall by doing it that way.
Yeah, chunking it. So as you think about your goal setting as an entrepreneur, and being an operator of your company, do you separate out your personal goals from work goals, or And are you a goal setter in terms of, your personal life as well as your work life?
Yeah, I definitely separate them. And yes, I am also a personal goal setter, whether it would be, go to the gym X amount of times, or, must accomplish this with my family, or spend more time, or, take up a new activity every quarter, things like that. And just try to stay on top of it. And again, leaving the pad on my desk is just a constant reminder and a reference for me to just always stay on top of it.
And you like the actual tactical feel of writing it down on it physically. Yeah.
Yes, and I love even more crossing it off.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about as a business owner, at one time you could set goals for yourself and you could have pretty much control over that. How do you think about goal setting as a business owner, and what do you share with your team and what do you not share? How do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, as far as just from a business standpoint, we like to set goals as far as revenue targets, for the next quarter, or what kind of percentage growth we're looking for from the prior year or prior quarter. And we like to just map out how we're going to get there, right? Because again, a goal without a plan is really nothing, right? So we like to kind of go back and say, how are we going to get to X or Y? And whether it's new marketing, opportunities or partnerships or, B2B stuff. It's just about having everything in front of you so you can actually have an accurate picture and roadmap, right, of how are you going to get to these things, because writing things down without having an idea how to get there is also a bit challenging. So, every quarter as a team, we always kind of go through goals for the next quarter, and it's mostly revenue based, new accounts, how can we scale from X to Y, essentially just new brand partnerships, or whether it's online or whether it's commercial. So, it definitely is something the team and I all sit down and do together.
So it sounds like you identify an outcome, but the outcome is really not what you're really looking at. Is what are the capabilities, the skills, the systems, the steps that are needed to get there. So that you break down, you chunk that up and break that down as a way to figure out where you're headed. When you face a new year, where this is going to air, we're facing the end of 2025 as we record this. We're going to air this in 2026. So it's a very, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. That's probably the life of an entrepreneur. Well, it is. There's no probably about it. But it's a life we're all living right now. We've been through a lot actually this decade, starting with COVID and going through a lot of political ups and downs and change, and also going through a lot of economic ups and downs. So how do you think about goal setting as it relates to uncertainty and the environment?
Yeah, our biggest hurdle, has definitely been the tariffs, the increased tariffs, right? Because we are, all our goods are made overseas ultimately, right? Nothing's made, in the US. So we had to deal with massive increases in tariffs, in addition to shipping. And also interest rates being where they are, cost of borrowing capital is increased substantially. So, every one of those things hit your bottom line quite a bit. So it's just about managing that and trying to figure out navigating it. As you mentioned, it's just, every week it's a different story, right? So it's pretty tough to plan for these things, because one week tariffs were on, the next week tariffs were off. And, we're scrambling to get product in, and that it's been really challenging to be able to plan for things like that. But I think that's really been our challenge really for this past year. The most is just trying to navigate around all of that.
Yeah. And just for our listeners, could you just, many of them may have heard your earlier podcast, but maybe remind everybody what you do.
Yeah. So the company is called AquaVault. We manufacture, distribute, and market portable safes, phone accessories, and bags. So essentially just anything for the traveler. We started off with one product, and now we have about 11 SKUs all within the same ecosystem.
Yeah. So talk to me about how this particular uncertainty compares to what you experienced in COVID.
Yeah, so COVID for us was extremely scary, right? Because being a travel focused business, travel essentially halted. And at that time, our primary product was our safe that we leased and sold to resorts and water parks and cruise ships. And, when all those businesses essentially came to a halt and travel stopped, it made us stress out significantly. And
Sure.
that's actually the year that we decided we need to hedge ourselves and pivot and have another kind of product that isn't so focused on the traveler. That's basically so focused on, hotel or what may be. So that's when we created the portable charging business that has really thrived and has been our number one revenue generator to date. We thought, what's something anybody needs regardless of what's going on, right? And everybody is glued to their phones these days or devices, whether it's the iPad, Kindles, etc. So we wanted something extremely portable that you could have on you that packs a punch versus those big bricks that, when you're out in the town, you wish you had, but they're so bulky and cumbersome that you don't have them. So that's what kind of got us to the drawing board for that. And that's taken off, to just new levels, way surpassing our other products. And, we kind of credit COVID to that because it really kind of put us in an uncomfortable position, right? Because we were so heavily concentrated into just the B2B business with hotels that, it allowed us to basically think, hey, these things could happen. How are we going to pivot from it? And now we're at least, we still have the B2B business. We also have the e-commerce business. And now we have a kind of promotional product white labeling part of the business. So we have 3 different avenues that can all contribute revenue. So it's kind of a nice hedge and allows us to do that. Yeah.
And the interesting thing about that is it's the uncertainty and the challenge, I guess, if you want to call it that. I'm sure it was. That would be, you could credit with giving you opportunities. So
exactly.
I'm sure you learned a lot from that. As you think about 2026, just to bring this full circle, what are you thinking about at Aquavault? Are you looking at other products or systems or capabilities that you might build to deal with the uncertainty that we have now?
Not so much uncertainty. Thankfully, we're positioned as a premium product, so we do have the margins and the capability to absorb a lot of the tariffs and things. But we're not a low margin product where once a tariff comes in, like kind of the cheaper imitations of products on Amazon, their margins are so thin. So when tariffs hit, you're just in trouble. There's no spread there. Thankfully, we position ourselves as a premium brand, so we did not actually raise any prices to customers throughout the year. We absorbed that tariff hit, which still allowed us to still be profitable. But as far as goals for the new year also, we do have 2 product launches that we're really excited about. We'd really love to focus on increasing our B2B business and distribution overall, which builds our ARR up, which is another part of the business that is always attractive. So that's really the goals for this year is, the new product launches. And we're a pretty lean team, so we do have a lot on our plate to handle. But yeah, overall, just new product launches. Hopefully the tariffs are in the rear view by, end of Q1, Q2. We're still optimistic. This is really kind of temporary and, well, at least we hope, but, that's ultimately it. It's just laser focused, look straight ahead, just don't really focus on the noise and just keep going, business as usual.
Oh, I love that advice. Staying focused and don't focus on all the noise. That's
because it's just a distraction, it
Yeah.
just becomes a distraction and negativity starts hitting and it just ruins everything ultimately.
Yeah, I think that's great advice for our listeners who are entrepreneurs and students who want to be entrepreneurs. So great advice, I think. Stay focused and get that clarity, right? It's about getting that clarity.
Exactly. Because when things are out of your control, truly, I mean, I can't, control tariffs, right? We can't control certain things. So ultimately, just you shouldn't let it be kind of a distraction to your business and just focus like it's a temporary thing and just focus on ways to navigate around it. Whether it's by increasing prices or getting a lower cost to absorb that difference, there's always ways to fix it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Evan, this has been fantastic. One more question before I let you go. I forgot to mention, where can people find your company and connect with you if they want to?
Sure. It's theaquavault.com. and we are on the website there. And if you'd like to connect with me, I'm on LinkedIn with my name, Avin Samtani, or you could send me an email at avin@theaquavault.com.
Wonderful. We'll put that in the show notes. I really appreciate you taking the time to share a lot
Thank
of
you.
great insights there.
Of course.
For all the entrepreneurs out there and students who are thinking about entrepreneurship and their goals for 2026. I wish you well with your new product launches and everything that you have going on at AquaVault and in your life. And thank you again. And just a big shout out and thank you for being a part of the Lowe Center here at the university as well.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. White. Always a pleasure.
All right. You have a good holiday, and thanks again.
You too.
Well, that was a really interesting conversation, 2 conversations with Isabella and with Avin. And I hope that you enjoyed listening in a little bit and thinking about how their approach to goal setting is similar and different as business owners at different stages. The 2 case studies are super interesting, I think. They bring us back to some of the basics of goal setting and the importance of thinking in terms of skill development, capabilities to add, systems that support or undermine what you're trying to do, and decisions that can be made more effectively and efficiently. And let's look at one more data point, my own experience with goal setting and what I'm doing this year, and adding to this one more lived experience. Now, goals have always been important in my life. I'm a huge goal setter, and I think that goals in all aspects of my life have been part of the reason that I've been able to achieve a lot of the things that I've been able to achieve. And I look back, I can remember one point in my life where I was super busy. I was the mom of 2 young children, and I was also building a career. And I had a number of things I wanted to achieve. And I found this little journal, and it actually was goals for the year. And in the back, it had these stickers. And so I think it was like 6 or 8 goals that I chose for the year. And you had a page where you wrote that goal. And then you had a couple of following pages to record progress that you were making on the goals. And I remember that so distinctly because they were stretch goals. It was a really challenging time. I happened to be a single mother at the time with these 2 small children in a career and in a town where I didn't have any family to support me. So it was really a very challenging time. But that little goals book, I looked back at it and I actually kept it. And I actually was able to achieve everything in that goals book. And I gave myself a gold star on all of them. And it sounds kind of silly, but it really mattered. It really mattered to me, and it helped me stay focused. And it gave me a great sense of accomplishment at the end. But this year, when I sat down to think about my goals and what I wanted to talk about to you in particular also, I just realized I needed to approach it differently. When I was reflecting on what I wanted for 2026, I realized that I needed to spend some time looking back at 2024 and 2025, and then maybe even look to 2027 so that I could add context to 2026. Now, I did this without actually the benefit of thinking about the research or best practice. It just felt like the right thing to do. And I'm really glad I did it because I needed to spend a little time focusing on the past and thinking about where I was, and then also thinking about 2027 and what I wanted 2026 to look like so that I would be well positioned in 2027. So it really felt right to me, and it really felt necessary for me to do that this time. And after doing it and then looking more deeply at the research, I realized it was actually a pretty cool practice. So you might want to think about it as well. It's actually supported by the research. It's future oriented, but it's also an opportunity to get a clear starting point and a reference point for where I am right now. So the past few years have been a period of real significant transition for me, professionally, personally, and emotionally. in late 2024, I think I've talked about it on the podcast before, 2 hurricanes came through Tampa, Florida, where I live. And my home, which is on the water and was built actually in the 70s, and the neighborhood had never flooded. My home was flooded. And we lost virtually everything in it. We were fortunate because a lot of our precious things, paintings that my mom, the artist, had done that were on the wall, and a lot of important photos and things were rescued. But we did lose some other very important things, some very, very old family photos, and a lot of things that were my mom's and dad's that I had was saving. Some of the things that we lost, we can never replace. But the reality is we were fortunate. We had a place to go. And so we've been living for the last year and a half in a home. And we were also in a position that because of the permitting requirements in our area, we had to tear our home down and rebuild. So we are building a beautiful new home, which is a very positive thing. But it's been a challenging year and a half of transition, living in a much smaller space, having a lot of things boxed up, and living further away from work. And I also moved out of my podcast studio because it was no longer convenient where I was living. So living and working temporarily in smaller and less convenient spaces has added a challenge. But the transitions for this time period have not all been negative. At the same time, like I said, we're moving into a beautiful new home. So it feels like another job to plan that, but it's an opportunity also to enjoy designing the home that I want, and I'm very excited about that. And I received some opportunities to take on new work-related roles, which also gave me, a real sense of purpose in a different way than I'd had, and a lot of growth and learning opportunities. So I've loved it all. I've been very fulfilled. I've had a wonderful year and a half or so with my family. We've taken some great trips, and we've experienced a lot of wonderful things, just time together, which is a very important priority for me. I talk a lot about work on this podcast, but my family's incredibly important. My grandchildren, my children, my husband, and my friends. I have friends that are so important to me. And in some ways, I've had real opportunities to spend some extra special time and prioritize them over the last year and a half. So it hasn't all been bad. There have been some wonderful changes and transitions over the last year and a half, but it's also been challenging. And I wanted to recognize that and think about it, because in the end, looking back over that forced a kind of reckoning for me that actually research on major life disruptions can support. And studies on post-traumatic growth and life transition show that periods of disruption often lead to deeper assessment of values, priorities, and purpose, and especially for those of us who are entrepreneurial and builders by nature. I bet you experienced some of this during COVID. There was certainly a lot of horrible loss, but there have been a lot of opportunities that have come from that experience. So let me encourage you to do what I've done, or think about it anyway. What do I want to accomplish next year? And when I thought about that, I asked myself, what does 2026 need to be so that 2027 feels aligned? So looking back and looking forward, the answer for me was clear. 2026 needs to be a building year. And I don't know about you, but as an entrepreneur, I love building. In fact, when I interviewed for the job at the University of Tampa, I was asked why I wanted to come here, because I'd already worked with a great team in the Cincinnati, Ohio area and helped to build an entrepreneurship program there that had reached national recognition. But my answer was, I'm a builder. So I'm very excited about 2026. I don't want it to be a year of rushing. In fact, I want to open up more space in my schedule for highest and best use of my time. I'm thinking about my time in a budgetary way, just like I think about my money. And I think that's critical for business owners and entrepreneurs. I don't want it to be a year of pressure-filled promises. So for me, it's about thinking more deeply about my time, and also saying no when I need to say no. I know that's something we all think about, but I think, when we've got a purpose and we're building something, that becomes easier. I want this to be a year focused on learning, integration, and closure. That is bringing some completion to a long period of change while also laying a stronger foundation for what I know is probably going to be change in the future. In my work specifically, that means looking deeply on and focusing deeply on clarifying and advancing my model of entrepreneurial intelligence, how entrepreneurs think, decide, adapt, and learn over time, especially in uncertain environments. I feel a real sense of purpose with that because I've lived it and we're all living it now. And I know for myself, having models and self-awareness around opportunities as well as transition and change can be really, really helpful. It's very tiring and very draining to be dealing with transition, but it's also invigorating and exciting. So interestingly, when I look back and think about it, this isn't the first time that uncertainty really shaped my work. In fact, during the COVID period, another moment when the future felt unclear for all of us, I found myself asking similar questions. And it was during that time that I wrote my See, Do, Repeat book, my book on entrepreneurial mindset, which brought together or brought to fruition 20 years of research that I'd been doing on entrepreneurial mindset. And this work on entrepreneurial intelligence is really, for me, the next step in that, understanding what powers that mindset and actually the behaviors and the practice of entrepreneurship. So what's the lesson in all of this? Because, I'm an educator. It's got to be there. Uncertainty doesn't stop entrepreneurship. It actually reveals it. I can remember when we first had the COVID experience and the university was shutting down, we had many students that were angry. They had come to this university partly because we have such an amazing space for entrepreneurs and students and others who support in the entrepreneurial ecosystem to come together. So they were struggling with what that was going to be like, and they felt like they were getting cheated. And I remember doing a video for them, telling them that they were living through an amazing case study opportunity, and that is to find opportunity in something like a pandemic, which none of us had ever experienced. So for me, goal setting, especially in 2026, has to look a little bit different because there has been a lot of uncertainty, and I'm hoping that there'll be more clarity in 2027 around a number of things in my life, and I hope in yours as well, if you're feeling uncertainty as well. And I think that this really is aligned with best practice that we've been talking about. So instead of asking myself, what outcome can I guarantee? I'm focusing on the capabilities and skills and things I need to strengthen to respond well, no matter what happens. But that actually all starts with clarity. So clarity and capabilities sit at the heart of entrepreneurial intelligence. And so I'm really excited to think about it as the year progresses and what I can do to help any entrepreneur who's interested build their own entrepreneurial intelligence, their own safety net, if you will, and their own self-efficacy and self-confidence that they're going to have what they need, the skills, the capabilities, the systems, the decision-making processes to deal with whatever they face. So in 2026, you can look for this podcast to bring you voices from different stages of entrepreneurship, like we always have, honest conversations about building amid uncertainty and decision-making, insights drawn from both research and lived experience, and reflections on how entrepreneurs grow not just businesses, but judgment, resilience, and clarity. As you think about your own year ahead, I'll leave you with a few questions grounded in both research and practice. What season of life and business are you truly in right now? What does this year need to build, not just to achieve? What do you need to build? And how can you set goals that allow you to stay open, adaptive, and aligned, even when the path forward is uncertain and unclear? So as we close, I want to invite you to visit my website, Dr. Rebecca White. That's drrebeccawhite.com. To get a sneak peek of the entrepreneurial intelligence framework I'm building, and also to download our entrepreneurial intelligence goals worksheet. Hopefully, if you download that and work with it, it will help you add more clarity to your life and get started on the skills and capabilities and clarity that you need to build in 2026 for a more focused 2027. So thank you for being a part of the InFactor community and for walking this journey with me. I'm Dr. Rebecca White, and I look forward to learning alongside you and building in 2026.